Alrighty, welcome back. It's been a really long time since I last did my upload. I just want to actually finish this series. So, yeah. Now we're on chapter 7. I'll probably link all the other videos in the description of all the previous chapters so you can get yourself caught up, get yourself prepared. Let's begin. We're going to do lymphatic and immune system. Once again, it's JBL. Same as I've always been using. I'm not going to read out the learning objectives. You can just read them here. Um, Basically, it's good to keep track, though, of these objectives if you are using these videos to study. Obviously, defining different things like immunity and differences between active and passive immunity. Obviously, infectious diseases. I mean, this is actually kind of relevant, from the whole pandemic from 2020 to 2022, and now we're getting into monkeypox. Yay. CDC is having a fucking field day. So basically, transports fluid through a network of vessels. Primary function is production, maintenance, and distribution of lymphocytes. These also transport excess fluid out of the interstitial spaces. Lacteals are special lymphatic capillaries. They're located in the small intestine's lining. They absorb digestive fats and carry them to the venous circulation. Biochemicals and cells of the lymphatic system attack foreign particles in the body. This is sort of the whole system, a very simplified version of that system. Lymphatic vessels only carry fluid away from the tissues. The pathways are tiny tubes formed by the lymphatic capillaries, as we have talked about before. Microscopic lymphatic capillaries extend into interstitial spaces in complex networks. The lymph is the fluid inside the capillaries. And this is another diagram. Lymphatic vessels have valves to prevent backflow of the lymph, actually very similar to how the heart has valves to prevent backflow of blood. Lymphatic vessels also got lymph nodes. You've got the lymphatic trunks, which drain into one of the two collecting ducts. There's a thoracic and the lymphatic duct. The lymphs then move into the venous system, becoming part of plasma. This is another diagram kind of explaining that. Tissue, fluid, and lymph formation. The lymph is just a thin plasma-like fluid. It's formed from interstitial or extracellular fluid. Basically the same as tissue fluid, and it's referred to as lymph once it enters a lymphatic capillary. Tissue fluid is usually made up of water, dissolved substances from blood capillaries. It's very similar to blood plasma. It lacks plasma proteins. Plasma colloid osmotic pressure is what helps draw back fluid into the capillaries using the process of osmosis. Lymph forms because filtration of blood plasma occurs at a higher rate than does reabsorption. Lymph also carries foreign particles, including bacteria and viruses, to the lymph nodes, hence why they swell up right here. Influenced by muscular activity, the lymph is under low hydrostatic pressure, and continuous movement of lymph stabilizes fluid volume in the body's interstitial spaces. Lymph nodes are generally found along lymphatic pathways. They're kind of like bean-shaped, 2.5 centimeters long. They contain lymphocytes and macrophages, which also fight invading microorganisms. You've got hilum, which is an indented region where blood vessels and nerves are attached. You've got the capsule, which is the protective membrane that surrounds each lymph node. This is sort of a diagram here. You've got the cortex, medulla, paracortex, terminal center. Lymph nodules are functional units, dense arrangements of lymphoid tissue. They're found in digestive, respiratory, and urinary systems. Some major collections of these would be like the axillary, cervical, and inguinal. Inguinal would be the groin. Axillary would be the armpits, which is why when you're sick, you also get swelling in the armpits. And cervical would be your neck, which is what doctors tend to check, or your clinician. Tonsils protect the body from bacteria introduced through the nose and mouth. It's comprised of three sensitive lymphatic organs. You've got the palatine tonsils, the pharyngeal tonsils, and the lingual tonsils. And you can see here sort of where they're located. Um, you've got Peyer's patches, lymphocynuses, and lymph nodes. Are generally grouped along larger lymphatic vessels, but do not exist in the central nervous system. So we've got the lymph nodes, which are part of the lymph organ. We've got two functions, which is to filter and monitor. We've got lymphocytes and macrophages. Once again, that diagram kind of showing where it is in our body. The thymus produces lymphocytes, and it plays a major role in immunity. It's kind of like right here in the sternum. It's divided into lobules, which are lymphocytes and thymocytes, with T lymphocytes, T lymphocytes. Kind of describe it as like a butterfly. Kind of looks like that. The spleen consists of two types of lymph tissue. There's the red and the white pulp. Virtually all of the blood in the body is filtered through splenic tissue. And there's that diagram for you. The immune system is mainly responsible for providing immunity, and immunity is that ability to resist damage from foreign substances or harmful chemicals, integrally related to the lymphatic system. That's why they're kind of paired together. Infection obviously is caused by virus, bacterium, fungus, protozoan. General categories, you've got the innate, which is non-specific. It defends against many types of pathogens, mostly present at birth. You've got adaptive, which is more specific, and they target specific pathogens to prevent or limit microorganisms and other environmental hazards from approaching, entering, or spreading. You've got the mechanical barriers, skin, mucus, hair. You've got chemical barriers, which is provided by enzymes, and you've got fever, which reduces the iron in the blood. Inflammation is, results in the influx of cells and other chemicals that fight foreign challenge. It's kind of why you get like everything kind of swells up a bit when you're sick. Chemicals that promote inflammation include, histamines, kinins, complement, prostaglandins, leukotrienes. Immunologic surveillance, you've got the NK cells, which monitor, recognize, and destroy abnormal cells, the phagocytosis, which is the injured tissues which attract to neutrophils and monocytes. They engulf and digest those particles. Monocytes influence the development of macrophages. You've got that species resistant, which obviously we're resistant to different diseases that may affect other species, and vice versa. For specific defenses, it's our third line of defense, resistance to specific pathogens or their toxins and metabolic byproducts. Our body is also able to recognize, respond to, and remember a particular substance, which is why we have vaccines. Antigens or allergens, substances that are foreign to the body, haptens as well. T lymphocytes, which are also known as T cells, they're specialized from the lymphocyte precursors released by red bone marrow before birth. They later end up making up between 70 and 80% of circulated blood lymphocytes. Others exist in lymphatic organs, and others remain in the red bone marrow. Cell-mediated immunity, which is also part of that specific defense. T cells, they create lymphokines. Interleukin 1 and 2 stimulate synthesis of cytokines. CSF stimulate the leukocyte production and activate macrophages and cause B cells to grow. You got that graph there. Kind of shows the breakdown of it. Before a lymphocyte can respond to an antigen, it has to be activated. This occurs through the presence of processed antigen fragments, which attach to that cell surface of an antigen-presenting cell. You've got the macrophages, B cells, other types of cells. Antibody-mediated immunity and antibodies are produced by B lymphocytes, which are B cells. Class of antibodies, you've got the Ig, which is pretty effective against bacteria, viruses, and toxins. IgA, which is an exocrine gland secretion, breast milk, tears, nasal fluid, gastric juice, etc. IgM, which is the first antibody to be produced in response to infection. IgD, which is important in the activation of B cells, and IgE, which is involved in allergic reactions. Antibodies generally attack antigens directly. They combine with antigens, and they agglutinate, agglutination, precipitation, and phagocytosis. Again, they sometimes neutralize toxic effects of antigens, and with some IgM or IgG antibodies combining with the antigens, they can trigger reactions that lead to the activation of complement proteins. Primary immune responses are generally constituted by activation of B or T cells, and secondary is where the B cells sometimes remain as those memory cells, and that's kind of why we get the vaccines every so often. To kind of renew that refresher. It's kind of like how our brains work. Um, Adaptive or acquired immunity, some caused by natural events or administration, which is that vaccine. It can be active or passive. Passive would be a patient receives antibodies produced by another person, or active, which occurs as a result of exposure to a pathogen. Sometimes that can be vaccine, vaccine for underneath there. Antiserum, given after exposure to disease-causing microorganisms. Naturally acquired passive immunity is passed from maternal blood to the fetus. Allergic responses are similar to an immune response, but allergens trigger the actual allergic response. Tissue rejection reaction, it's where a transplanted body part is attacked by the receiving patient's immune system. Autoimmunity, the immune system fails to distinguish self from non-self. And infectious diseases typically are transmitted from one person to another via specific microscopic organism. Most frequent infectious diseases seen in pre-hospital care, serious infections such as pneumonia and hepatitis. Hepatitis, generally 70,000 people annually, causes inflammation of liver. Tuberculosis spreads through droplets of coughing and sneezing. It's not generally a serious threat in the U.S. right now. It's prevalent in nursing homes, homeless shelters, hospitals, prisons, migrant foreign camps, HIV positive individuals, and IV drug users. Disease transmissions, you've got the common modes of disease transmission. You've got airborne, body substance injection, oral transmission. Injection obviously is needle form, body bites and stings. You've got known infectious agents, which bacteria, virus, fungi, protozoans, nematodes, and prions. Bacteria are generally small one-cell organisms that are capable of independent existence. They're classified based on their shape, and most serious human infections are, TB, UTI, pneumonia, and plague. Viruses are small particles that are incapable of living independently, containing genetic material, either RNA or DNA, typically live and reproduce within another living cell, and viruses cause the most common colds. Fungi and protozoans. Fungi are generally small, plant-like organisms such as yeast. They cause many common conditions such as athlete's foot or jock itch. Protozoans are single-cell animal-like microorganisms such as amoeba or plasmodium. An exposure to that can cause malaria. Nematodes and prions. Nematodes are unsegmented worms that are tapered at both ends. This includes roundworms, pinworms, and hookworms. Prions are abnormal proteins previously believed to be incapable of a free-living existence, and that somehow survive independently and transmit disease. Flora, bacteria that colonize certain body sites to maintain homeostasis. You've got Escherichia coli, which is E. coli. It's located in the GI tract. Certain types can cause serious diseases. It's essential in the metabolism of waste products, and it colonizes the oral nasal cavities. So yeah, that's it. That's chapter 7. I'll see if I can crank out chapter 8 later. So yeah, bye.